Hello, everybody. My name is Terri Lafollette, and I'm a solutions consultant with Topia. And my background includes more than 20 years of professional experience, including global mobility, compensation, and employee engagement solutions. So in our webinar today, we are covering compensation collection best practices and strategies for compliance. So our agenda, we will discuss compensation collection and what that actually is and how it fits into the overall payroll cycle. We'll discuss a few of the challenges, which I'm sure many of you are already aware of and may be experiencing today. And then we will highlight some best practices and then go through those in detail. So specifically, we will talk about the benefits of collecting compensation on a per pay period basis, the importance of shadow payroll and compliance, and how technology can help automate this process. Then at the end, we will cover a Topia case study on one of our customers. And then as Sean mentioned, we should have time to take a few questions. All right, so what is compensation collection? It is the collection of all monies paid to and on behalf of an assignee, including any payments made by a third-party vendor on behalf of the employee, such as the RMC or the tax provider. It also includes any instructed global expat payroll items and assignment allowances, any locally paid items that are processed through accounting and finance. And that should include both cash, the payroll and assignment allowances, as well as the non-cash, those benefits in kind items. So you want both cash and non-cash included in comp collection. So having a payroll schedule that includes the return of compensation from all the potential areas is a crucial step in the payroll life cycle. So where does comp collection fit in the overall payroll cycle? So first, the payroll preview is prepared, then the payroll instructions are finalized, then those instructions are sent to local payroll. That payroll is then processed and the data is returned. Then the compensation should be collected and imported onto the employee record. You can then revalue and conduct a total compensation audit and perform the year-end gross ups and expense reconciliation. Compensation collection can be very complex and very challenging, as you may already be familiar with. You have lots of data sources, whether it's from the home and the host payroll, the vendor payments, tax payments, expense reimbursements, all of those locally paid items and your benefits in kind. So it can be very difficult to gather all of that data and information consistently when it's not stored in one place. So you're trying to pull all this info together from all these different disparate systems and places, and that can prove to be a very challenging task. And then on top of that, your mobility teams typically face a lack of resources. You have time constraints, making this all the more difficult. We see a lot of organizations, they are typically only performing comp collection at year end. And that makes it difficult to consistently audit this information without some automated way of conducting that audit and those checks. So with all of this complexity, how do you ensure that you aren't missing items? You've got all this data coming from different sources. How are you staying compliant with your global tax compliance issues? So the compliance issues is one of the greatest challenges. And then when your internal teams at the end of the year are collecting compensation, they end up trying to chase down data all at once, and they're overwhelmed with reviewing all of that information at year end in a time crunch. And then when they're reviewing that data and conducting audits, they realize that some payments were missed. So for example, you may find that the rent payments at the host location for February and August were missed entirely, so they weren't captured. So now you have to send out an amended tax form, and that amended tax form then frustrates the employee. And we see and hear from employees that their greatest frustration points typically are around those amended tax forms and refiling of taxes because of errors and things that were missed. So that erodes the overall employee experience. And then probably most importantly, with the global tax compliance issues are a struggle without correct comp collection, and that can lead to fines. So you need to be aware of compliance issues to help prevent those fines, and therefore it means that compliance is incredibly important. So what are the best practices that we recommend to make this more efficient, take up less of your time from your teams, reduce frustration, and hopefully, most importantly, help keep you compliant globally? So first of all, we recommend that you collect compensation on a per pay period basis rather than waiting until year end. Stay mindful of benefits in kind, so those non-cash payments, don't forget about those. Conduct quarterly total compensation audits to identify any gaps in reporting rather than just auditing once a year. Report shadow payroll accurately for global tax compliance. And then finally, use technology to quickly give you the total compensation picture in one place and provide you with automated audits to easily facilitate the process. So now let's look at each of these in a little more detail. All right, so the benefits of collecting compensation on a per pay period basis. So comp collection is performed on a predetermined schedule as part of the payroll process to help reduce gaps in information. Corrections are made in the next payroll cycle rather than waiting until year end. So this makes the year end process more efficient, saving time and reducing work effort, reducing errors, which then helps reduce employee questions and frustration. Any missing compensation items are collected in a timely manner. Collecting on a per pay period basis allows for a total compensation audit, and quarterly total comp audits are best practice to help identify and collect any missing items before year end. This is more efficient. It helps identify gaps more quickly across all of the sources of data and helps ensure compliance. Collecting comp on a per pay period basis and correcting issues in the next payroll cycle helps prevent those corrections all happening at year end, which then results in corrected tax forms and the refiling of taxes. It gives the employee a greater level of comfort and trust that everything is correct, rather than those errors piling up and requiring correction at critical tax times. So you have an overall better employee experience when you're collecting comp on a pay period basis and then correcting those issues in the next pay cycle. Most importantly, for compliance, accurate and complete comp collection is needed for reporting shadow payroll correctly. And shadow payroll is needed for global tax compliance, and you must have accurate and complete comp collection to have accurate shadow payroll. And that's why reporting shadow payroll is so important. It all goes back to global tax reporting compliance. Non-compliance can bring a range of consequences for both the company and the employee, including things like back taxes, fines, and penalties. So for example, in China, tax filings and reporting are a requirement on a monthly basis. So are you able to currently gather all the elements of compensation and report on it correctly for compliance on a monthly basis to meet that country's requirements? And that's just one country's example. With China, most countries do require reporting on a monthly or at least a quarterly basis. So by reporting shadow payroll correctly, it enables the payments made in the host country to be recorded as compensation for those monthly or quarterly tax filings as required. The shadow payroll should include the cash and the non-cash, those benefits in kind payments. And reporting correctly includes creating subsidiaries for each host location where required. So the best practices for running complete and accurate shadow payroll include international payroll instructions are run and processed, the compensation results are collected and committed, and then shadow payroll is run at the end of the month after all compensation has been committed. So you're running shadow payroll 1 month in arrears. So I've mentioned being aware of benefits in kind as a best practice. So make sure that you include and collect all of the non-cash payments made on behalf of the employee. Most countries do require that a company report all of those benefits in kind that are part of the compensation package to stay compliant with payroll and tax laws. How these are treated from a tax perspective does vary from country to country. So please consult with your tax advisor on specifics and details, as Topia does not provide tax advice. So just a few examples for you on the benefits in kind. Don't forget those payments to the vendors. So your tax provider, your RMC, your destination services, also include those relocation and moving expenses, any locally paid items, so things paid directly in the host location on behalf of the employee, such as rent payments or education or childcare services provided, language training. All of those are benefits in kind, those non-cash payments that you want to make sure that you capture and include as part of your compensation collection. All right, so the benefits of technology, it all boils down to 4 main points: automation, efficiency, compliance, and savings. So technology allows you to have all data in one centralized location from every source and every step in the process. You can have built-in workflows and automated tasks and notifications that prompt people to take the necessary steps at the right time to manage each and every step in the process. And then that helps guarantee that every task and step is completed. And that not only gives you efficiencies and time savings, but also reduced work effort. The right technology helps you remain compliant by properly collecting each and every compensation element, including the benefits in kind, all third-party vendor invoices, all of your home and host payroll items, expenses that have been reimbursed, and then everything is tracked and reportable on the employee compensation record. Technology will also give you automated auditing, and reports are quickly and easily available at your fingertips, making reviews more efficient. It helps easily facilitate those quarterly total comp audits as well. That is also one of your best practices. So it will give you a full total compensation picture each and every month. And that helps keep you compliant, but it also gives you that internal reporting and insight into your data. So for example, a budget to actuals report, so that you can compare your cost estimate to what was actually paid for an international assignment or a permanent transfer or a domestic move. You can compare what was budgeted to what's actually been paid. You can pull up reports and data for things like year-to-date compensation reports, year-to-date tax reports. All of that would be available for reporting because you have everything stored in one central location. And then a technology platform that is already built to manage compensation collection on a per pay period basis makes every step easier and more efficient. And you gain all of those benefits we outlined for per pay period comp collection. Technology facilitates reporting shadow payroll correctly, and it helps keep you compliant, reducing work time, reducing missed payments, and reducing those amended tax forms and refiling of taxes. So to review our best practice recommendations, collect compensation on a per pay period basis. Remember those benefits in kind, stay aware of those. Conduct quarterly total compensation audits. Report shadow payroll correctly for tax compliance. And adopt technology for automation. So let's take a look at a Topia case study. So we have a large global technology company as a customer, and before Topia, they were using a Big Four tax provider. They were collecting comp manually only at year end. So it was all hands on deck, fire drill of a situation every year. And 96% of their employees were receiving amended tax returns every year before Topia. They had no reporting capabilities or insight into their data either. And now after Topia, this customer reports that year end is now just like any other month for them because they are collecting comp on a per pay period basis, and they have dramatically reduced those amended tax forms. They now see lower costs due to greater efficiencies. They have a centralized system of record, and so now they have that insight into reporting. They can run those reports on the spot as needed. And then, of course, greater compliance because we're helping ensure every step in the process is captured. All right, so we have, looks like, a few minutes for questions. I do thank you guys for joining us today and listening into the webinar. So Sean, do we have a few questions?
Hey, Terry. Yeah, thanks so much for putting together this presentation. We have had a couple of questions come through, and I just want to remind folks that if you do have questions, now is the time to submit them. But of course, if you don't feel like submitting a question here, you can always email us as well. So, Terry, the first question that's come in is, what type of error automation is used by the Topia platform? So how are we helping to check for errors automatically?
Okay, good question. All right, so the Topia platform is a fully integrated suite that starts from the assignment planning and management all the way through the comp collection process. So we build in a series of workflows and steps that are automated in the Topia platform to ensure that every single step is completed at the right time. We also have automated comp collection templates, and those are created based on the payroll instruction files. So the comp collection templates, they're pre-populated with the salary and the allowance data, and then that helps guide what is returned on the comp files. So all of those pieces work together to help with the error automation, and then of course all of the reporting to help with any additional reviews and auditing as well.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Another question that's come in your experience, what are the biggest issues with compensation collection?
So what we see across most companies is ensuring that you are collecting comp from all of the different sources. So when we looked at that challenges slide, all of those different potential places, the home and host payroll, any third-party vendors, you want to make sure that you're gathering all of the data from those potential sources. So having a payroll schedule that includes the return of compensation from all those potential areas is a crucial step to help you in reducing those gaps in the information. And Topia, at Topia, we found that sharing your compensation collection timelines with all the parties involved and identifying potential risk of non-compliance will help you in getting the data returned from those other sources.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. I guess this next question is a good follow-up to this one, is, reporting comp collect in a pay period basis seems like a lot of work. Does Topia provide any service or support around compensation collection?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, Topia's financial services team supports, we cover payroll, compensation, expense, and vendor management, and accounting functions, and we've got clients from around the globe that are using our services.
Great, so we're definitely there to help with compensation collection and other payroll-related
Yes.
items. Great. So it looks like we have one final question that's come in, and that's awesome because we'll end right on time here. So the final question, Terri, is in relation to the case study that you presented, how was Topia able to lower the costs?
Good question. So we were able to help that customer see savings in a couple of areas. So first, it's the actual costs that were associated with paying their providers to rerun and produce W-2Cs, so those amended tax forms. The second is the overall savings and work effort. So we're actually able to help shift people's time and efforts off of doing compensation collection and reallocating it to different tasks and areas. So those are of the two of the top ways that we helped that customer save.
Great, that makes a lot of sense, particularly, I guess, if you have to pay each time to run a W-2C, I could imagine that gets pretty costly.
Yes.
Great. So at this time, we don't have any other further questions, so we're going to go ahead and close the webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and be on the lookout for our next webinar that's coming up at the end of the month around building the case for investing in global mobility management technology. You can find that on the events page on our website. Terri, thanks so much again for putting together this presentation, and thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you soon.
Yep, thank you. Bye.